You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Uffens. Enjoy the show. Excited to have Austin Bell on the show today. Austin is a hunter who lives in the great state of Colorado. He's also the founder of the Leaf Hat Company, and excited to chat with him today, learn a bit more about his business and what he's up to, and talk some hunting stories. Austin, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. I'm excited to chat with you, and always love talking hunting. Love to, chat about Leaf Hat Co. Definitely a project I love working on, but yeah, I'm excited to have a conversation with you today.
Yeah, well, so let's dig into the hunting side of things first. So you're just you said you're in Conifer, right? So just about 35 minutes, you said, outside of Denver.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is there any good hunting up in Colorado? I haven't hunted there before.
No, there's none. There's hardly any elk here. No big mule deer. So definitely a place I would say guys can look over and focus on other Western
Yeah,
states.
just scratch that one off the list. Stay in your home state, right?
No, there's a lot of good hunting here in Colorado. I mean, I think residents here or folks in general tend to think about Colorado as like an opportunity only state, and the Orange Army or the pumpkin patch and rifle season, and that's certainly true, but or true to an extent, but there's tons of opportunity as well as quality here. I personally feel lucky that I've kind of cut my teeth hunting over the counter elk here, because it seems like as I've matured as a hunter and started to look at other states for better opportunity or just more opportunity, that going anywhere outside of my home state for at least an archery elk hunt, it just kind of tends to get easier than doing the OTC grind here. So I love being based in Colorado. I don't know that I'll be here forever, but I've lived in this state my whole life, and I've definitely taken advantage of the hunting opportunity here.
What's been your favorite hunt that you've been on since you've been? Well, I mean, you've lived there your entire life, but is there one that stands out that's kind of like the cherry on top?
Yeah, probably my bull from 22. Um, he was my first bull elk, one and only bull with a bow so far. But I've been hunting for, this will be actually my 10th season this year. So not something I like grew up doing, at least in terms of big game. My dad introduced me and my other brothers to upland hunting when we were pretty young. Um, so I've always kind of been in the outdoors in a sense, but when I was, in my high school years and college years, I was very much focused on team sports, and then kind of found bow hunting after college. Um, and yeah, it took me 7 years to get a bull elk with my bow, but that delayed gratification, that long-term pursuit of a goal, I think will be hard to top. So yeah.
So dig into that elk hunt, kind of like walk me through it, because you said it's been your one and only bull, right?
With a bow. Yeah, I've gotten a couple bulls
With
now.
a bow, right? With a bow. So, like, tell me about that hunt. What was it? How'd you get it done? Because it sounds like you've done a couple other hunts with your bow, but haven't been able to necessarily have a successful harvest. But tell me about this one. Walk me through it. Give me the details. I want to hear all about it. Because this is going to be the year I'm getting my first bull with the bow.
Hell yeah. I love that. Confidence kills, man. I think it's the number one skill set in the woods is just being a confident hunter. But yeah, I mean, that was a hunt that I put just a tremendous amount of work into. It was in Southern Colorado in like a leftover limited unit. So something you can just pick up with, no points or on the leftover list. Those are getting harder to come by, but not a primo tag by any means. And I'd hunted it the year prior with some friends, missed a bull on day 16, zipped one just right between his legs as he was looking at me frontal at about, 35 yards or so. And that miss just ate at me. I'd killed my first elk like 2 years prior to that. But working that hard, 16 days in a row, hadn't even left the woods. I mean, we'd gone back to the trucks and refueled and everything, but missing a bull on day 16, and like my time was just up on day 17. So that miss really ate at me and really like sparked a fire in me. And so between that was in 2021, and then between that season and 22, when I actually got my bull, um, I was
Hey,
just
Austin, sorry, can I pause you for just a second? I
yeah
have a question because so when you say so 35 yards frontal shot, like as you look back, do you recognize? I mean, was there something specifically you did wrong or that caused it to miss, or because the whole thing? The reason that I ask, I'm not trying to like out you, is like I'm trying to learn because I've yet to be able to even let an arrow fly at a bull. But
sure.
like I want to try and learn from, I mean, from people's mistakes. Like, hey, here's what I wished I. You don't know what you don't know, and so that's why I ask if it was just. I mean, it could have just been like, the blood starts pumping, man. Things break down. But as you look back on it, was there something specific you're like, ah, oh, damn, this was it?
Yeah. So it was actually an unknown yardage. So I think that was really the reason why I missed. I
Okay,
had chased a bull up and down a mountain in the morning and hadn't gotten on him. Kind of worked my way back down the north face and got water in a creek bottom. Was coming kind of up and out of some willows and jumped a bedded bull, just like laying out in the wide open sun. And I don't know for sure that it was the same bull I was chasing that morning, but I had a pretty good feeling that it was. Um, Jumped him out of his bed and watched him just like run up a hill, and I literally just sprinted after him, um, and got up to the rise that I kind of like watched him go up and over, and slowed my pace right at the top of that hill so I could kind of eke up and over and see if I could relocate him visually, and didn't see him. So I kind of just started working in the direction I thought he went, and then quickly saw like a body. What was weird is I at first I thought it was a bear because I just saw like the brown of his neck like sticking out from behind a tree, but it was the bull, and he had actually. And as I was chasing after him, I was throwing out a bunch of cow calls, trying to slow him down or just get him interested. And he had stopped and like positioned himself how they often do, where their body's behind a tree and they just kind of wrap their head and neck around. And I saw that brown of his neck, and so I stopped where I was, dropped my pack, and was just cow calling a little bit at him. Um, and he wasn't moving or responding really. And so I just put a tree in between us and just started going right at him and cow calling. And he hung up right where he was at. And I had ranged initially when I dropped my pack, and I was at like 75 or 80 yards. And I started closing the distance with that tree between us, and closed what I felt was between 40 and 50 yards. So I thought I was right around 30 at that point, 30 to 40. And he was not moving. I kept just calling. He just kind of stayed behind that tree. And then eventually he just stepped out and stood and faced me frontal. And I was still behind that tree. And so I just took that as my opportunity, drew behind the tree, stepped out into a lane. As I stepped out, I felt like he was, um, I visually thought he was more like 20 or 30 instead of like 30 to 40. And so I just put my 30 pin
yeah.
right on the bottom of his chest, and he was probably closer to 40, between 35 and 40. And I watched my arrow just zip right underneath his brisket, right between his legs, um, hit the dirt, and he just wheeled and ran off. So,
It's hard to gauge those distances. Like a lot of times, like I'll just go set a target down and I'll start walking, and I get back and I'm like, that looks about this yardage. And then I pull my rangefinder out and I'm like, oh yeah, dude, you're way off. So I mean, I get like you kind of hedge like your points, but it's crazy how if you misjudge that, like you can miss your shot real easy.
yeah, yep. Guessing
So
known yardages is definitely a skill I've tried to develop further since that miss. Just challenging myself in my yard here. I've got targets kind of sprinkled all between 30 and 50 yards, but I'll just move different distances and try to hit a very particular spot, and pick those yardages: 36, 37, 33, 34, 35, like all those in between pin shots that none of us like shooting, but we oftentimes face in the woods. So trying to trying to up my game on being able to visually judge yardage is definitely something I work on.
Yeah. I don't know if there's like a secret to figuring out how to do that other than like the only thing I try and do is just I'll set a target out, kind of just start walking and then turn around and kind of visually be like, that feels like this. I get close sometimes, but other times, right when I think I'm getting good at it, I'm like, oh, yep, nope, you're 10 yards off. That makes a big difference, like in where you're aiming for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And like I said, I mean, no one ever loves going back through like their misses, but um, maybe it could help somebody, have success out there,
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
themselves an
Absolutely.
opportunity to kind of prepare and train. So,
I
anyway, so
listen.
fast forward, like that thing just ate at you, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
miss, and so you're going like, okay, I'm getting it done this year.
Yep. Yep. So after that miss, it was just like, I'm going to do everything in my power to kill a bull next year. So yeah, that summer, I think I spent 7 different weekends in between like May and August going and scouting, and I planted a few trail cameras, really just to get an idea of animal movement, not like targeting specific bulls, but just getting an idea of what's moving through the area, trying to get a better idea of when things are moving, just investing and putting time into being in the woods. So lots of scouting trips, tons of e-scouting. I would say I was already kind of on to Mark Livesay's e-scouting course and kind of the approach that he teaches for hunt planning. But I took it again even more serious that summer, that off season leading into the 22 fall than I had in years prior. So no joke, like hundreds, maybe thousands of hours e-scouting. I have a really good buddy from Mississippi, um, who we plan hunts together. And even if it's not a tag that we both have, we have like a recurring Wednesday morning e-scouting call before either of us ever start our work days. Every Wednesday we talk and compare notes, look at maps, develop hunt plans. So a lot of time in that off season went into hunt planning and then just time in the field. So yeah, season finally came around, packed in a day um, ahead of the opener. So I was on the mountain for the opener and glassed the bull that I ended up killing opening morning. But I was about 6 or so miles in at that point, and he was another like 4+ miles off. um, I knew it was going to be an absolute grind to even try to get to him, let alone kill him and get him out. And so, I glass him opening morning. I'm in great country. And so I just kind of hunted around my base camp for the first few days, keeping an eye on this bull. And he was actually running cows. He had like 25 to 30 cows on the opener. I'm watching him rip bugles through my spotting scope on the opener. So to me at that time, it really just showed that like unpressured elk can rut and act like elk at any point in the month. I think a lot of times we get sucked into thinking that like the only time they're going to rut is during this prime rut period, but finding those pockets of unpressured elk really allowed me to hunt elk that were acting like elk and not so pressured. Um, yeah, that's the bull. um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so just kind of hunted around my camp for a couple days, trying to honestly locate closer elk. And I'd be on the vantage at first and last light to try to pick him back up, and then go kind of make a day out of the day once I'd finished the morning glassing hours. And he just kept showing up, um, morning and evening. There was, I think, one session, I forget what day or what, if it was morning or night, but um, season opened on the second and I killed him on the fifth. So second, third, and fourth, I watched him basically morning and night every day. And on that third day, he showed up in the morning. on that same meadow, looking just like that every single day, just running a big group of cows. And I decided on
Wow.
that third morning of seeing him, like, I it's go time. Like, you don't need to find closer elk. You've already found a good bull and you know where he's at, and you've not patterned him, but you've seen him do the same thing a couple days in a row. There's a good chance he'll still be there tomorrow. And so after that morning session, I left camp on the mountain and ran back to the truck, the like 6.5 miles, got a bunch more food because I didn't have enough with me on that first load to actually go another, 5, 6, 7 days. So I went back to the truck. I think I got like 6 or 7 days of food and hustled back in, and was planning on making the session that night to pick him back up. And did not make it back onto the mountain that night in order to see him. Um, so I actually stayed right in that same place one more night, and the next morning, um, that meadow was quiet, and I wasn't seeing any elk, and I thought maybe
This meadow where he had been every the
yep, he's
past two
shown up on
days.
that same meadow day after day after day. And granted, again, this meadow is 10.5 miles from the nearest trailhead, so they just weren't getting pressured there. Um, and yeah, so I spent one more night there, woke up the next morning, meadow's empty, my gut sinks. I think, they've moved off or something happened. And then I literally catch a glimpse of him chasing one cow for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Like, it was just a glimpse. And I don't know where the rest of the herd went or why that happened, but he was still around. And that last bit of confirmation told me, okay, he's still there. So packed up camp, dropped down into this nasty canyon, placed myself below that meadow, but several hundred yards. I mean, I'm way off the hillside. And then my plan was the next morning, get up and put myself right on the edge of that meadow. Um, so yeah, set up camp, set my alarm, missed it, woke up at like 6:15, 6:20, 6:30 in the morning, and it's light already, and I'm kicking myself just like, man, I cannot believe that I put in all this work and located this bull, and I know he's right there, and I wasn't disciplined and didn't wake up with my alarm. And I almost took a different plan that morning, and thought about kind of peeling off and getting back up onto a vantage, not the one I originally located him on, but a different one to relocate him. I was like, you know what? No, like, I've got 3 hours of morning thermals. This country's super steep, so the morning thermal is going to be piling down into my face for a couple hours here. I'm just going to work up to the meadow and see what happens. And I only got 5 minutes hiking off of the creek, headed up towards the meadow that he was at, and started hearing bugles. So I
Wow.
had a good feeling that he was still there.
Game on.
Yeah, you hear those bugles when you're making a play, hoping to relocate something that you saw from the day before, right? Or you saw that morning, you're trying to get back on them in the evening, and you hear that one bugle, and it's the reassurance you need that your effort is, spent in the right place. So yeah, charged this big hill, hearing him bugle, ripping bugles, and I was getting right to the point where I felt like, hey, I need to really slow down here and look at my map. And I'd kind of picked like a strip of timber that pushed out into this meadow that I felt like was a good place to put myself to have a shot opportunity. And I start slowing down. I'm looking at my maps to make sure I'm taking the right route into this little strip of timber. And I look up, and there's a cow 25, 30 yards from me. She doesn't have me pegged, but she's kind of in the open. She's looking my direction. So I slow down. And then all of a sudden I hear bugles like right there. And I think he's about to pop out chasing this cow. And she just kind of like moseys off, and I'm waiting for a bull to step into her window. I actually drew on the window like 2 or 3 times, and he doesn't show up. And then all of a sudden I just kind of see antlers just moving through the brush, and I draw another time thinking, okay, here he finally comes. And he must have just kind of taken a different route through the brush and never showed his body. Um, and then all of a sudden I hear a bugle like 100, 150 yards to my right, like way away. And I felt like he was right in my lap, like ready to pop out at 30 yards. So I drop my pack, start my tracker, and just start heading in the direction of this bugle. And I ended up visually locating the bull 5 minutes or so into that little hike. He was just kind of feeding slowly, working his herd. And I only ever saw a cow and a spike and then him. So he was just kind of on the edge of his herd, just kind of keeping everybody in check. Um, and I ended up just kind of getting on his trail and visually locating him. And every time he put his head down and take a few steps, I would do the same and try to close the gap. Um, and did that for about 250 or 300 yards, covering that ground in like 30 to 40 minutes. I mean, it was kind of a slow, methodical, just every time he moved, I moved, and I was just trying to close that gap, and eventually got to the point where he was stopped and feeding on a hillside, facing like from right to left, feeding up the hillside. And I got so close that I knew I was sub 20, and there was like a creek running that was covering my noise too. So I had confidence that I could get that close without, um, popping sticks or making noises. So basically got as close as I could when he stopped, and I knew, okay, I'm sub 20. I basically just need to not freak out and, execute a decent shot at this distance, like all pin center mass, don't overthink it. And so I just drew back in cover, had to step down probably 3 or 4 feet. It was like, felt like a drop off, but stepped from like a ledge down into the creek, stepped out at full draw, and he turned his head. But at that point, I was already, all pins on him, already pulling on my shot. And that's all I was telling myself is just pull, 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 like don't punch the shot. Because you could definitely screw it up at 12 yards, which is what I ended up shooting him at. But um, as long as you don't do something catastrophically wrong or crazy in your shot process, like you're probably going to hit the mark at 12 yards. So that's all I was telling myself was just pull, pull, pull. Don't look at his antlers. Like just execute your shot like you normally would. And broke one off, heard it impact and actually smack a bunch of trees and rocks on the other side. So I knew I hit him, and I got a pass through, and he actually just did a 180 and faced down the hill, but didn't run off, and just kind of stood there for a sec, and then watched him mosey off, lay down in a bed about 15 or 20 yards away. And his head was just kind of swaying in his bed. And looking back, that one arrow was money. I think I double lunged him and he would have died right there in his bed. But tough old bull, my first bull, and I see him go lay down in his bed and his head's just swaying. He's facing away from me. The wind's now kind of coming uphill, so I feel like I could get a follow-up shot. So I sneak up to about 10 yards. I can really only see like the back half of his body. And, at this point, I'm just trying to get a follow-up arrow in him. So I basically put my pin right on that brush line. I know it's not a perfect shot, but it's going to get somewhere up in there in the vitals. And I'm just trying to get a second arrow in him. And I'm also thinking he had no idea I was there on that first arrow. But as soon as the second arrow hits him, he's going to, know something's wrong and take off. And he was probably just hurting so bad that he couldn't go anywhere, but smacked him with his second arrow, and he just sat there in his bed and took it. His head's still sitting there swaying. I'm like, man, all right, well, I've got more arrows. So shot a third one, same thing, head still swaying. And so at this point, and what was crazy was with these
So he was just a tough old bugger.
Tough old bull, just taking arrows and just refusing to die. But yeah, with those follow-up arrows, I was hearing like his body cavity deflate, like a big balloon with the air getting let out of him. And I'm shooting 80 pounds, got a pretty big wingspan, big heavy arrow. And I'm just sitting there like, I cannot believe this bull's still alive. So shoot second and third at like 10 yards, and his head's still swaying. So I step up to like 7 yards. It feels like I'm standing on top of him, and shoot him with my last 2 remaining arrows. I had a 5-arrow quiver, and I just emptied it. On that 5th arrow, I hear it like blow through him, spray dirt, balloon deflate. 5th arrow goes through him. At that point, he decided to stand up and try to take off. And he ended up just crashing on the other side of the trees. But I'm sitting there with an empty quiver, just shot this bull 5 times at 12 yards or under. And then I watched him get up and basically disappear through some trees. And like, I don't know what else I can do at this point, but he ended up piling up on the other side of those trees. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
then the work
Well,
began.
that's a cool story, man. Yeah. Yeah. And I was watching on some of that video. It shows you guys trying, starting to break him down and that. Yeah. Is that normal? Like, is that something you would do? Like if you were hunting like mule deer, you hit something and like they go, you got a solid shot. Is that normal to keep shooting? I don't know.
I mean,
I'm asking.
I would say with elk, like most guys are always gonna kind of fall into the camp that if you've hit an animal or hit an elk and they're still standing, like keep shooting if you have more arrows, more
Right.
bullets. Um,
Yeah.
I think now as a hunter, just being a little more experienced and having some kills under my belt, like um, if you know your first arrow is good, especially at that close of a distance, I don't know that I'd be taking follow up shots, even though I knew he was still alive, just
Yeah.
because it does take time for all the blood to get pumped through their lungs and
Fill
form
the lungs.
capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking back,
Yeah.
I
But
probably could have let him just expire in his bed there. Those 4 arrows were
yeah.
definitely
And I was
overkill.
gonna say on the other side too, there's the other side where it's like, hey, like you want to dispatch them as fast as possible, right? So it's like, well, let me see if I can get one through and just get it over with. But yeah, some of those we were up, we went up and helped harvest a bison with a guy, and he took it with the arrow. I mean, it was on a ranch, so it wasn't like a wild bison or anything like that. But he put 3 arrows through him, and that thing did not want to go down. I mean, it probably sat there for about 10 minutes before it kind of started like the death wobble. And even then, when it went down, like all of his cows went and circled around him. I mean, it was a cool experience to see because he was just one bull and there was I think 6 cows that they had. And but yeah, and the first one, it's like, did we hit it? Like the guy's like, did I hit him? And I'm like,
Yeah,
you hit him. And but it was complete. All 3 like were complete pass throughs. I mean, this dude was like another big dude. Like I think he was like 6'5", big wingspan, heavy poundage. Like I'm like, yeah, no, dude, you're hitting him.
yeah,
He's like, did I miss? I'm like, you hit him. But yeah, it's can take a minute for the animals to, I mean, die. I mean, that's just it is what it is. But
yep,
yeah,
yep.
well,
There
congrats, man.
was.
That's a beautiful bull.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was over the moon with him, and yeah, I'm sure I'm obsessed. It's like bow hunting elk is my favorite. All I ever think about is hunting, but bow hunting elk is by far my favorite thing, and I'm sure at some point in my life I'll top him. But first bull after 7 years of basically putting my all into it, and many years coming up short, it was definitely an awesome moment.
So you had the one you missed the year before. Like up to that, like what was the most difficult part? Was it finding them? Was it getting close to them? Was it calling them in? Like what was the biggest struggle that you had faced?
In my early days, it was always finding elk. Um, like I mentioned, this isn't really something I grew up doing. My dad was not a big game hunter. I have an uncle or a couple uncles in Minnesota who are big game hunters. They chase whitetail there, but one of them in his like 20s and 30s, he hunted Alaska a lot. But I didn't really grow up in a hunting family, and so um, finding elk was my biggest challenge in the early days. I listened to a lot of podcasts, watched a lot of YouTube videos, but I was essentially just, stumbling around the woods trying to figure it out on my own. And I'd I'd spend, 10, 12, 15-mile days on the trail, just absolutely beating myself into the ground physically, but not doing the right things that you need to do to actually find elk. So that was always my biggest challenge in the early days. Just simply getting on critters.
What was the tipping point for you to being able to find elk? Was there something like specifically that happened, or was it just like all the research and experience all kind of started to come together?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the years of effort definitely had like a compounding effect where eventually, a lot of mistakes just led to doing things the right way. But I do have to give a lot of credit to Mark Livesay. He has an e-scouting course that I think is worth 10x the price now that I've gone through it and know the information that's in that course. He really breaks down e-scouting and hunt planning in a very systematic way. And, you know, I had the fitness and the drive to go out into the woods and hunt, but I didn't have the wildlife biology or the ability to read terrain, those kind of like woodsman skill sets I didn't have. And he just presented information in a way that allowed me to look at a map, Onyx, Google Earth, and really just, again, in a systematic way, look at a hunt area and decide why I want to spend time in this drainage over this drainage, when if you hiked into them in person, they might both look the same. But when you start analyzing terrain and looking at like slope profiles or breaks in vegetation, which could be beetle kill or edge habitat from burns, like those pieces to the puzzle was what I was really missing, because I was spending a lot of time and effort getting out there. I just wasn't going to the right places. And so going through his course really helped me learn how to break down a hunt unit and decide why I'm going to spend my time in this drainage over that one.
Cool. Is it the Treeline Academy?
Yeah. Yep. Treeline Academy is the name of his business. And he does
Okay.
he does an online course, and he also does a bunch of in-person seminars, which I'd encourage anybody listening to check him out. The in-person seminars are great because you can, you know, meet other like-minded guys and build relationships. But his course is very dense. There's a ton of information in it. It's like going to, you know, night school if you're working a full-time job and you want to go through this course. It's going to take you, you know, a couple months at least if you're doing it justice. But what's cool is he actually sells like a 2-year membership, and he does that because, and it's like $150. And again, like I'd pay 10x the price now knowing what I know. But he gives you 2 years to go through the content because it's a lot. I mean, I think a lot of us hunters kind of, we find something that works and we stick to it. And for e-scouting, a lot of guys, that's OnX, and OnX is still my main tool. I think it's the most bulletproof app for in the field usage, but there's 10, 12, 15 different online tools that guys have available to them to incorporate into their hunt planning. And I was I was very limited in what I was doing prior to going through that course, and now I use, you know, OnX, Gaia, Go Hunt, Google Earth, CalTopo, Spartan Forge. Like there's so many different tools available to us, and every one of them is kind of really good at a few things, but not everything. And so taking that more holistic approach to hunt planning, I think, is really what like flipped the switch for me and allowed me to consistently get on the critters.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think back like how much I hated school. But if there was like a topic that you fell in love with, it's like, dude, endless time. I mean, and I mean that's what the algorithms on social have become. They find out what we're interested in, and you just start doom scrolling
Yeah,
for
they just
hours
stir
and
up more
hours
of
on
it.
end. So yeah, it's definitely interesting for sure. But yeah, those courses, stuff like that. I mean, that's probably a lot easier and a lot less expensive than starting a podcast to be able to talk to people and learn all these things. I mean, that's kind of why I started this podcast. I'm like, I want to talk with guys that are successful, that know how to get it done, and from all ranges. I mean, from you know, influencers to just the average Joe that only gets to go out for a weekend. It's been fun talking to people, and they've got so much knowledge, and they were brought up doing it. And it's like, you know, I'm in a similar boat as you. Like no one in my family hunts. You know, my son was like, he was one that got me into it. And then once he got me going, it was like all gas. I'm like, this is amazing. Why have I not done this forever?
That's
And
awesome.
my wife oftentimes she's like, how many of those videos are you going to step and watch? And I'm like, well, until I fall asleep. You know, it's like I'm going to go until I can't like retain any more information. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's good too to kind of like document things. Like that's the one thing that I look back. I wished I would have taken better notes of what I was doing. Because as you do the research, if you go back and look at the things that you were doing that either like led you to success, led you to find trails, even if you didn't find elk, because not every time that I've been out the past 4 years, I've been able to even get on elk. And that's, you know, that's a process, like you had said, in and of itself. So taking the time, whether it's, you know, Mark Livesay's like Treeline Academy, I haven't done that, but I definitely, you know, you've got me thinking I probably need to make that investment, and it will be a worthwhile investment for certain.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny how when we find something that we're passionate about, you just can't seem to learn enough? But if it's a topic that you're not interested in, I mean, you couldn't pay me, right, to learn about or go to an organic chemistry class now is one of my least favorite subjects in school. But man, I'm shelling money out left and right to soak up a little bit of elk knowledge here or attend this, hunting seminar there. Like when we're passionate about something, it's you want all that information that you can get from any and all resources.
Yeah, I was in a meeting this morning at 10:30, and it was a training for work, right? And I'm just sitting there, and it was, well, one, they, you know, they get in and they start struggling with the technology, right? Person starts presenting, and then it cuts out, and somebody else starts presenting and muting. And you know, it was a group training, so we're all in this, you know, conference room, and then somebody drops off, whoever was presenting drops off, but you're watching the screen, right, where people have the video on, and a guy's gone, I don't know, he's probably off for like 2 minutes, and there's people that are just sitting there working, like you see it on, like they didn't even notice that the training had ended.
Yeah.
Now I'm sitting there myself. I caught bits and pieces, but I'm in there just completely zoned out. And it was, it's interesting. I guess it's a bad thing too when like hunting becomes your passion. It's like I saw a meme last night. It's like, hey, do the smart thing, you know, quit your job so you can focus, you know, on hunting 365 days a year. And anyway, maybe that's a little inspiration, but yeah, when people find a passion, and you know, people joke about being adult onset hunting, but for me, like I've kind of hit this stage where, I mean, my youngest turns 19 this month, and I mean, I was very involved with my kids in that, and you know, as they started to graduate, and you know, they're all older. We've got two grandkids now, but my wife's like, you should find something that you want to do. She's like, you're making me a little bit crazy. So anyway, it just worked out that my son wanted to do this. So, I mean, every time I've gone out, it's been with him. We've gone out with some buddies. And so I still get to spend time with family. And um, my daughters have no desire to go out hunting, but
Hey,
we'll,
that's all right.
it's still it can still be a fun family thing. And it's been kind of cool, you know, for my wife to see like my passion and knowledge. And she's like, you didn't know very much about this. And I'm like, I didn't. I knew I started doing it and I enjoyed it and I loved it. But now I'm able to sit and have conversations. I'm like, oh, what about this? Did you think about this? And it's nice to have a little bit of knowledge. And as you study that, like we had talked about, like you're out in the field. That's the other key, is like get out in the field so you can start putting that knowledge to work. Because you can watch all the YouTube videos, like listen to all the podcasts, watch all the reels you want to, but until you start trying to execute and put it to practical use, it's like you're never going to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't put the pieces together. But
Yeah.
as you continue to learn, like I said, that's the one thing I wish I'd have done, is taken more notes to go back. But as I start reliving the situations that I've been out hunting in, I'm like, this is where I went wrong. And I wished I'd have made this change, or if I'd had if I'd have done this differently, I maybe would have been able to have gotten back on this bull or buck or whatever it is that you're out there chasing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
super cool.
I think in the field notes and just like debriefing after your hunts, whether it's just with your, like by yourself, if you're solo hunting, or with your hunt partner, like again, really taking like more of a structured and systematic approach to hunt planning, and while you're in the field and like post hunt, trying to digest that information and organize it in a way that helps you grow as a hunter is huge. I've developed my own little tips and tricks
Yeah,
along the
was it Jocko? Whoops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I've developed a few of my own little tips and tricks along the way in terms of like note taking or capturing that information. But even just like the little things, like when you drop a point in OnX, like utilizing the camera feature or the photo feature on a waypoint to snap a pic, and then take the extra 30 seconds to throw something in the notes about why you dropped that waypoint. um, those kinds of things I think can go a really long way to help you really retain what you've learned in the woods. Because if you think you're just going to remember it all, you're not. Like we're we're prone to memory failure as humans, so you got to write that stuff down. You got to kind of develop a system for learning each time you go out and then building upon that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just to that point, I can't remember if it was like Jocko or Goggins. I was listening to a podcast or one of the books or something, like the after action reports.
Yep.
I can't remember which one of them said it. I mean, maybe they were talking to each other, but yeah, like when you do that in all aspects of your life, if you go to try and do something, you sit down and just like take note of it, man, it will go a long way just to helping you improve. I mean, it can be like as simple as like your diet, right? It's like, here's what I actually ate. You know,
Yeah.
this was what I was trying to do, and here's what I ate, and that's why, you know, that's why I'm still fat. Speaking for myself. Um, but but yeah, there's something to be said about sitting down, and if you look at some of the successful people, like that's, I mean, people that I've come in contact with, they take like a full accounting of their activities and their actions, and like, is it moving me towards my goal or is it not? And what could I have done better, or you know, and what did I do wrong? And what I did right? Because if you start looking at all those things, it just makes it easier to put the full puzzle together.
Yeah.
So
Could not agree more.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey, let's pivot a little bit here from that. Why don't you? I'm super interested. Like I said, we got connected with Lee, who we had on the podcast and had a good time with, and he wanted to make an introduction, to tell me well, he told me what you guys were doing, but why don't you share with the folks what Leaf Hat Company is?
Sure. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity. So yeah, started a project that we call Leaf Hat Co. or Leaf Hat Company in 22. Our first product, which is the hat I'm wearing, we launched in August of 23, and we've just got this one style out right now in 4 colorways. But our whole idea is that we wanted to bring performance headwear to the hunting space. I was literally walking down the elk trail one day, making notes in my phone about, hey, you got to repair this, strap on your backpack. And hey, you might want to look at, a better technical mid layer because the one you're wearing on this hunt isn't cutting it. And, I'm always taking notes in my phone while I'm out there, not only about like my hunt stuff, but also just, life. Like we get that time in the woods where we get some clarity, and ideas just seem to bubble up. And I was analyzing my kit walking down the trail, and I literally started at my boots and just worked my way up. And, was just kind of checking boxes like, are there obvious opportunities to start a boot company? No, like there's a ton of great boot manufacturers. What about pants and shirts? Nope. Those are like, there's plenty of technical hunting apparel companies out there. And literally worked all the way up to my head. And as much as I love Hoyt bows, I still shoot Hoyt. I was wearing a Hoyt cotton trucker that I got for free at the bow shop. And I was just like, man, this is doing, other than blocking the sun, this is doing like virtually nothing for me in terms of performance. It's a cotton hat. And it's not built for anything other than just, promotional material. So made a note. I was like, I think there, could be an opportunity for better headwear in the hunting space, and got home and started doing some research about who might already be doing that. Didn't find anybody that was targeting the hunting space, and found a few companies that were making performance headwear, but for other industries or just other kind of demographics. Bought a bunch of their hats to see what they're all about. Like, did these guys already nail it? And I'm just going to waste a bunch of money and time thinking that hunters want this. And felt like although they had cool designs or some cool features within their hats, that there was still a lot of room for improvement on what they were already doing. And then the opportunity to do this specifically for hunters. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how Leaf was born, and we've actually got 3 new styles that are in prototype. Well, some of them are in like the latter rounds of prototyping. Some of them tech packs just finished. We're working on protos right now, but we're planning on launching hopefully another 1 or 2 styles this year, and a couple slotted for 26. So we brought like a trucker silhouette to the market that looks and feels very much like one of those trucker hats you'd get at the bow shop, but has a bunch of performance upgrades brought to it.
Yeah, so it's the shell on those, like they're breathable, right? They've got some. Are they water resistant?
Yeah. Yep. So they're treated with the water resistant treatment. So the whole exterior is like a poly blend, so it dries super fast,
Okay.
wicks moisture, and just breathes really well. Um, One of our like most notable features is our super flexible brim, or we call it our sweet spot brim. I did that because I felt like I was always getting head pinch at the side of your heads. I felt like a lot of the comfort of a hat came from the brim. So wanted to make that as flexible as possible while still maintaining some rigidity, so you could, glass off of it, have it keep some shape. I wanted a hat that I could wear in the woods, but I also would want to wear to the gym or to the brewery or out on date night. So I wanted it to look good. I found a lot of performance hats out there that were made for a specific pursuit, but you'd feel like an absolute goofball wearing that to the brewery or the gym. Um, so yeah, tried to just take that trucker style and bring some performance to it. It's also got a little silicone band on the inside of the forehead, and that's designed, we call that our sweat redirect system. It's designed to catch sweat as it runs down your brow and push it to the side of your face. Um, it's got
Okay.
sweet little topo liner in there, and that two-part liner allows moisture to be absorbed here and then quickly wick. So didn't completely reinvent the wheel, but just took the trucker silhouette that we all kind of know and love, and brought some performance upgrades that were specific to Western hunting.
Huh. That sounds super cool, man. I have to get my
Thank you.
hands on one.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah, we'd love to see you hunting in one this fall. We'll have to get you one.
let's do it. If somebody wants to go check that out, where would they go? How would they go find one?
Yeah, we're pretty easy to find on socials. We're just Leaf Hat Co. And then our website is just leafhatcompany.com, all spelled out. But we're
Okay,
pretty
we'll
active
make
on.
sure and put a link in the bio as well for the Instagram and the website. So if any of you are trying to find it, if for some reason you can't spell leaf or hat or co and find them, we'll make it easy for you guys to be able to track them down. But yeah, no, I think it's super cool what you guys are doing, and I mean, I've got some hats that I've worn out hunting that start to smell a little bit rank. And yeah, like you say, when it's time to go out to dinner or something, the wife's like, "You're gonna wear that hat again?" Are these? Can you clean these?
Yeah, yeah. So that was actually something I kind of forgot to mention. So this one on my head, I've probably worn this one in 150 workouts or more, 4 or 5 hunts, um, and looks pretty much brand new. So um, they do a really good job at not holding on to sweat and dirt the way that cotton does. So our recommended like care instructions for these is to wash them with cold water, so heat will kind of shrink them. And I wash mine in a hat cage in the washing machine, just like a plastic hat cage you can get off Amazon in a pinch. When I haven't had one, I've literally just taken some clothes and kind of wadded it up inside some clothes and just chucked it in the wash. But you can wash it with normal detergent, or preferably scent-free detergent if it's going to be your hunting hat. But you can chuck them in the washing machine and they come out looking pretty much brand new.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, Austin, man, hey, really appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing the stories and letting folks, tell folks a little bit about Leaf Hat Company. If you want to, guys, throw some support, go over, check them out, leafhatcompany.com, and on socials at Leaf Hat Co.
Yep.
And then also give Austin a follow again. We'll put link to his Instagram account in the bios. It's at AB from CO.
You got it.
So AB from Colorado. But Austin, is there anything, any like last parting thoughts, any word of wisdom you'd like to leave with our audience before we wrap up here?
Man, I would just echo,
Putting you on the spot now.
Yeah, all good. I would just echo what you said earlier about where the rubber really meets the road is time in the field. You can spend all the time you want listening to podcasts like this, which are great. I pull a nugget out of every podcast I listen to or YouTube video that I watch, but you're really going to develop those skill sets when you get out into the field, when you shoot your bow. I'd listened to some of your previous episodes and I really liked your overrated, underrated question, but I feel like guys put too much emphasis oftentimes into what gear they're using, or, looking at a new tent that came out and how are they going to shave a couple ounces. And yeah, that stuff matters to a point, but I think the most important thing is experience. So get out in the field, go scouting this summer, shoot your bow a lot. Don't overthink the gear bit, and really just put your time into developing your skill set as a hunter. And yeah, you'll get more chances on critters. You'll notch more tags. And in my opinion, it's all about reps and experience, over what gear you're using or what bow you're shooting.
Well, and since you brought it up, I am going to ask you, what do you think is the most overrated piece of equipment in the hunting industry?
So overrated, I put broadheads as my answer. And the reason for that is because I just stopped working at a bow shop here in Denver. I was working there part-time. Love those guys. Shout out to No Limits Archery in Denver, Colorado. It's the best bow shop in Colorado by far. So if anybody's traveling through Colorado for your hunts, definitely hit up No Limits. But I worked there part-time, just kind of as a passion project, something to help me develop as an archer, kind of give back to the hunting community. That community there has helped me a ton. And so I worked there part-time for a couple of years. But you ask any guy in that shop what broadhead they shoot, and pretty much every one of them is going to have a different answer. And I feel like guys really get wrapped into the new equipment in archery, whether it's, arrows, bows, broadheads, whatever it is. But it seemed like a lot of guys came in focusing on broadheads, like, oh, what'd you kill that with? Or I didn't get great penetration and it must have been the head. And what I found over the years in personal experience and all the guys I know that are killers, it's like you hit that critter in the right spot, it's going to go down regardless of what broadhead you have on there. So, I think pick a good sharp broadhead from a reputable brand, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and then find the animals, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on the other side of that, we'll do the follow up. What's the I may know the answer to this one. What I think you're going to say, as far as most underrated piece of equipment in the hunting space?
Yeah. I'd love to hear what you think I'm going to say.
I think you're going to say hats.
As much as that should be my answer, it's not. I'd love for everybody listening to grab one of our hats, because I do think it'll help you in the field. But I everybody's been talking about stabilized binos the last couple of years, so I don't want to just jump onto that bandwagon, but they really are a game-changing piece of equipment. I'm not the best glasser, and ever since I got pair of SIGs, all my buddies are like, "Man, great spot," and I'm like, "It's not me, it's the binos. These things are a cheat code." But something I hear people kind of rag on a lot for some reason. I feel like it's like the really hardcore guys talking about, shaving ounces or shaving weight, talking about not bringing a pillow or not bringing XYZ because of the weight. And for me, my sit pad is like the number one most used item in my pack. I use like a Nemo switchback pad that could be used as a sleeping pad. I mean, you'd get an awful night's sleep if that was your only sleeping pad, but I use that as my sit pad. It serves as backup under my sleeping pad so that I don't pop my sleeping pad at night. So it is kind of a multi-purpose item, but you know, I I'll change my clothes on it if I want to jump into the river and I climb out wet. I can stand on a sit pad and take care of business. Every time I sit down, whether it's just to have a snack or to actually glass, getting that relief using a sit pad. And again, the multi-purpose, being able to back up my sleeping pad at night so that I'm not popping that and having to burn half a day trying to patch a sleeping pad or hike back out to the truck to get your backup. I think a good sit pad is one of the most underrated items in your pack, because it's not sexy and it's not exciting to talk about sit pads, but it probably is the most used item in my backpack on a hunt.
Awesome. I think that's terrific advice. Yeah. I haven't even been smart enough to take a sit pad with me. So I just sit out there and just let my ass just get sore.
Yeah.
And
Well, there you
sticky
go.
and all the stuff. So I definitely gonna look into that one. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway. Well, Austin, man, hey, it's been great talking with you. Like I said, getting to know more about you and everyone else. You guys, just so you're aware, you are listening to the fastest growing hunting podcast in the country. If you've learned something, if you've been able to pick something up, please share it with a friend. Give it a like, leave a comment. The more you guys interact and share, like the more the algorithms like us and helps get podcasts out to other hunters that we'd love to be able to help and have success and share good stories on. So again, thank you all for listening, and stay safe and God bless.
Thanks for having me on.